Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Menachot daf Nun, we're going to begin on the top of Nun Aleph. So we began discussing the Mishnah on the previous daf on Mem Tes that said the following: that it's true that the Musaf is not ma'akiv the Tamid and vice versa, so you can bring one without the other. And then the Mishnah said that let's say you're not makriv the Tamid in the morning, Yakrivu ben Rabbi, then you can bring in the afternoon. On that, Rav Shimon said, a Masai, Bisman shall you oinsin a shaygin, if it was like an accident. However, if on purpose you didn't bring the Tamid shel Shachar, then then you cannot bring the Tamid in the afternoon. And he says when it comes to the Ketairis, which is also brought in the morning and the afternoon, it wasn't in the morning, you can still bring the one in the afternoon. And you would have to bring the entire amount, even though you're really supposed to split it. But if you didn't bring in the morning, you bring the whole thing in the afternoon. Okay, so that said, let's understand this next piece of Gemara. So the Gemara says as follows: so if it wasn't done the Ketairis in the morning, so you bring in the afternoon, and you bring the entire thing, you don't bring half. Because we only will inaugurate the inner Mizbeach, the Mizbeach HaZahav, which we put the Kataris on, only when the Kataris HaSamim are there. So Chinuch, Mandak, or Shemei. In fact, the Gemara, we never heard that. What exactly is this really being asked over here regarding inaugurating the Mizbeach HaZahav? So on this, the Gemara says, really there's words in which are missing. This is what we're supposed to read. If you didn't bring the carbon tamid shel shachar, don't do the afternoon. When do we say that you cannot bring the tamid shel ben arbayim? It's shol nischanech hamizbeach. That's only if it wasn't inaugurated. However, of nischanech hamizbeach, once the Mizbeach was already inaugurated, even though the Talmud Shel Shachar wasn't brought, you can still bring the Talmud Shel Barbayim, says Rashi. The whole pasuk that we quoted is specifically talking about as it's being inaugurated, except so Rav Shimon Amasai, when do I say that you can still bring the Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim? Is only bisman oinsin a shaygin. If the person there was an accident, if on purpose the Talmud Shel Shachar was not brought, then in that case, no. Lo hikrivu keves b'boiker, then lo yakrivu Ben Arbayim. Lo hektiru kataris b'boiker. However, if you're not mocked to the kataris in the morning, b'boiker yaktiru Ben Arbayim. So how do we know this? Let's talk about it. The pasuk says, "V'asakavas hasheni." The second carbon talmid was tas ben Arbayim, was in the afternoon. Now, why does it say sheni? It means sheni ben Arbayim. Only the second one should be brought in the afternoon. V'lo rishon ben Arbayim, not the first one. So when it comes to the Ketairis, the entire thing is brought. However, if you didn't bring the morning Talmud, and let's say it was a B'shaygig, you don't bring both to meet them in the afternoon. So, when do we say this? Nischanech HaMizbeach. Of Nischanech HaMizbeach, afil rishon ben harbayim. So then we'll say that's only because we didn't inaugurate the Mizbeach. Once the Mizbeach was inaugurated, so if you didn't bring the Talmud in the morning, you can bring two of them in the afternoon. Now, this is a shtickle manna. It says that the only time you can bring the Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim is dafke if it was Meshayigig that you missed in the morning. So that's the din, which I'm going to ask a kasha in a second. So when we're going back to the carbon tamid, I understand the kohanim made a big mistake. They didn't bring the Talmud Shel Shachar, and they didn't do it b'mezid. So this is a kayin that unfortunately really didn't do the right thing. So now, because this guy did something wrong, now there's not going to be a Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim, and the Mizbeach, we're going to punish the Mizbeach and the ganze Sibor. So he says, you're right. It means that if b'mezid you didn't bring the Talmud Shel Shachar, then lo yakrivu hain, then that Kohen will no longer have the privilege of being able to bring the carbon Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim. But of course, other people could be makar of the Talmud Shel Ben Arbayim. We're not going to have the Mizbech bottle. Lo hektir kataris b'boiker. If it wasn't done in the morning, yaktir ben harbayim. It could still be done in the afternoon. The kivan delush. So why? Why don't we punish this guy? He didn't bring the morning one because kivan delush shchicha. This is not common, as Rashi says. Even though the Talmud is only twice, right? But what does it mean that this is shchiach, the carbon, but not the ketyrus? So he says ketyrus oilam leisa elatris dimni b'yayma. There's only two ketyrus. That was it. However, when it came to karbanos, there's numerous other karbanos. So it's not shchiach that this would happen. Umi'atra, and people became rich. As the Gemara in Yoma said, they had specific lots for certain things, but this was something, as Rashi points out. Let's just read the next few words in the Gemara. Chaviva lahu v'lo pishi. Person, it's beloved and they're not going to be negligent in the future. Says Rashi, lishna chrina ushchicha b'chad gavra. It wasn't shchiach that one person would do it. A bunch of different people would do it. Basically, every person only had this one chance to do it. So therefore, if you had, let's say, one day to do it, okay, and you messed up in the morning, you definitely want to do it in the afternoon, and other people aren't going to make mistakes. So it says that you become wealthy. As the pasuk says in Rashi, quoting it, Yasimu Ketyrus, that you'll be blessed, you'll have bracha. So there was a bracha in the avoda of the ketyrus that a person became wealthy by doing it. So therefore, that was the distinction. Okay. All right. And then it says, Rav Shimon v'kula ha'isa kriva ben harbayim. We're makar of the entire ketyrus in the afternoon. Fine. She'en mechanchanas mizbech hazahav el b'ketyrus hasamim shel ben harbayim b'chul. It was only when you brought the ketyrus in the afternoon that was mechanech the mizbech hazahav. I bosanya b'ketyrus hasamim shel shachar. It's supposed to be the morning ketyrus that inaugurates the mizbech hazahav, not the afternoon. So tanoihi, it's machlokas. It seems like the afternoon ketyrus is the one that has this effect. How do we see this in the Pesukim D'Chsiv? It says in Perek Shemos, in Sefer Shemos, pardon me, but boiker behetivos nerais. In the morning, the Kohen would clean out the candlesticks, the candles, which is of the menorah. Yaktirena, and in that time he would also burn the ketyrus. Now, ilav de avid hadalaka mu'urta. If we're not talking about a situation where it was already lit from the night before, so then hatava b'safra mehecha. What's the purpose of him cleaning it out, right? So it's obviously coming to tell you, as Rashi points out, my boy lasakin lasafra. In the morning, what is he cleaning out? If it was used the day before, right? Alma chinuch menayra ben harbayim. Must be that it was in the afternoon before that it was lit. Kivan menayra nischancha be'erev kateres nami tchilasa be'erev. Okay, so that's the drasha that it's really from the morning, the Talmud, just like the menorah. And so that the ketyrus rather was of the Ben Harbayim. What is that regarding the outer mizbech? That was the first thing brought on it. Okay, so the question is, do you learn out from the Noah, which is the night before, or the afternoon if you say before, or you can learn out from the mizbech hachitzain, and that's the machlokas. Okay. V'loyas a shulchan El b'lechem apanim b'Shabbos. When you put the lechem apanim on Shabbos, those 12 showbreads, that's what was mechanech, that's what inaugurated, if you will, the shulchan. El b'chayil, which is mashma, that if you were to put the breads, the lechem apanim, on the shulchan during the weekday, which again, you're supposed to do it on Shabbos, but let's say it on a weekday, so ich nuchi hudoi mechanech. So it wasn't inaugurated. Ha-Kedushi Mekadosh, which is still mashma, but at least did something. It did sanctify. He gufa kamashmalon, which is that true? So we say hu gufa kamashmalon to tell you the chinuch v'kiddush the shulchan b'Shabbos, that actually both the chinuch and the kiddush has to be that it's done on Shabbos, which means that if you put the lechem apanim on the shulchan, not only will not be mechanech, will not be mekadosh. Hu tani seifa v'los manayra el b'shiva neraseha bin harabayim. So it's telling you a specific time and specific things, and therefore it's also in this case as well. Says Rashi, "U'menara ein mekadeshes." The menara is not mekadesh. Kloimer v'chol milsa dida einu elo bin harabayim. It just happens in the afternoon. Dahainu hadalaka, when it's lit. So achanami hani mili didei kol mili didei the kiddush v'chinuch the shulchan b'Shabbos. Okay, all right. Let's continue. Tanabon. Zehu ketaris she'olsa liyochid al mizbeach hachitzain. So this is referring to the ketaris that was put by an individual on the mizbeach hachitzain. Now this is a little difficult to understand because we've always known that we are the carbon on the outside, the mizbeach hachitzain, mizbeach nechayshis was for karbanos, and the mizbeach, which is on the inside in the kodesh room, that was for makta kataris, for the spices. Now it's true, we do see that there are times when we'll do zrikas dam, like the dama par and the sar of Yom Kippur on the mizbeach zahav, but generally speaking, the mizbeach inside was for the kataris, not the outer one. But over here we're saying that it was on mizbeach hachitzain. Now, so this was actually just a unusual circumstance that was not typically done. Says Rashi, the shuvlu hayaba al mizbeach hachitzain. Typically, we never put it on the outer mizbeach. It was just this one time. Zehu ketairis. Okay, so this is, as we'll see exactly when this was at the end on Amud Beis. So this was question 14 asks, Mahai Sahara Shah carbon Hanasiim She'ein L'Dairis. So we'll see that again. It's talking about the Nasiim when they brought their various carbonos, discussed at great length at the end of Parshas Naso. So what was the Harashah? So they were actually Makter Ketairis, but they were Makter them on the outer Mizbeach, not on the inner Mizbeach. Okay. So that's going to be one of the answers. We're also going to see that the Ketairis was brought as a Nedava, right? Which typically it is not, which we'll see, especially by a Yachid. So Harash Shahaisa, so Heicha, so Rapapa Menasim, right? So there you go. The Gemara actually says it here. It's going to say it again. So with regard to the Nasim, this is the Harash Shah. So Ella Yachid al Mizbeach Hachitzain Hu Deloi. So an individual shouldn't bring Kataris on the outside. What is that mashma? Hal Mizbeach Hapnimi Makriv. Is that mashma that a Yachid is able to Makriv Kataris inside the Mizbeach? We know the inner Mizbeach is not true. The Su al Mizbeach Hachitzain Yachid Hu Deloi. Only a Yachid can't do it. Hat Sibur Makrivu. But a Sibur could be Makter Kataris normally on the outside, right? On the outer mizbeach, of course not, right? It has to be a tzibor inside. So, and after all, Vasanya Yochli hey Yochid misnadev umevi. You would think that a Yochid can bring Ketairis himself. Kiyatzaba nedava kiyatzaba nedava v'karani ba maitzas avatecha tishmar v'yasisa. That basically whatever came out of my mouth, I'm going to adhere to. So even when it comes to the Ketairis, that you could be Makder Ketairis, the Yachid can. No, Talmud Leimer Lusalu Alav Chatas Zara, right? a yachid cannot bring ketairos, as it says beferish. Yachli, hey yachid, maybe he can't. The only reason why a yachid can't bring ketairos is she'ein maybe chayvasa kiyotzaboy, is because we never find that he can ever bring not just nadava, because we don't find that ketairos chayva exists by a yachid. There's no obligation for an individual to ever have to bring ketairos. So therefore, as a yachid, so that's maybe the reason why he cannot bring a ketairos as a nadava, as we continue in Beis. But maybe avot tzibor yehe maybe you could. After all, she maybe chayva kiyotzeba, right? You can bring a tzibor brings chayva of ketairos. So maybe they could bring nadava too, right? Maybe you can bring nadava, which is referring to again even the tzibor. Talmud Lemer lo salu. No, they're not allowed to. Can't be brought. So yachol yalu al mizbeach hapnimi. Maybe it just means you can't bring into the mizbeach hapnimi, which again is designated for the ketairos tzibor chayva. However, Abu Yalu Mizbech he said, "When the Lord as Shemna Mishcha, yes Kataris Asamim L'Kaidish, Kecholash Yisibasicha Yasu, Ein L'cha Elo Ma Shiyomer Be'inyan." You can only do what it's stated. So we see clearly that a yachid is not allowed to bring Kataris, even on the inside, and a tzibor is not allowed to bring Kataris on the outside Mizbech, either. So Papa lo maboy tzibor al mizbech achitzayin. Tzibor cannot bring the outer one. The lo ashachan, we never find that. Lo maboy yachid, and certainly a yachid cannot bring on the outside. And al hamizbech hapanimi, also the yachid can't even bring it on the inside. The lo ashachan, we never find it. El afilu yachid al mizbech achitzayin. Even when it comes to a yachid to bring a nadavas ketairos on the outer one, the ashkan menasiyim harasha haisa. Even though it's true that the nasiyim did bring the ketairos outside, even though they're a yachid, right? So the nasiyim, right, are like a yachid, right? So maybe you would think in the Havamina that a yachid could bring ketairos nadava and kamash, right, on the let's say on the outside mizbeach. Kamash mola, no. Okay, fine. So that is the harasha haisa shehevi ketairos nadava and shekrivu haketairos al mizbeach achitza. All right. This is also question TA29. Is a ketairos haisa harasha, which is of the Nasiyim. Umandu chashiva harasha. It was a yachid and it was on the mizbeach achitzay. Okay. Let's see the next Mishnah. Okay. Let's see the next Mishnah. Chaviti Kohen Gadol. So this is referring to the Kohen Gadol who would have to bring a mincha offering, and it's called a Chaviti Kohen Gadol because it was put into a machvas, al machvas, which means on a thin layered frying pan, and this was something which he had to bring every single day. He would have to bring half of it in the morning and half in the afternoon. Now, what does that mean? If you only have to bring half in the morning and half in the afternoon, so you would think you could do the following. But the Gemara is going to say, Mishnah is going to say you can't. Lo hayu boyin chatzoyin, you can't bring half. El mevi isar and shalom. You have to bring the whole thing and v'chutzhu and then split it up. Makav machsa b'boiker, machsa ben arboim. Bring half in the morning, half in the afternoon. That's what you're supposed to do. Okay, so says Rashi, Lo hayu boyin chatzoyin, shal yevi chatzi isar b'boiker mibeis. So you can't like grab half from your house. The chatzi isar be'erev. No, you can't like go to your house, bring in half, and then come and get another half. You have to take the whole thing one shot, and then you take the whole thing and you split it in half. Now, what happens if you have kohen gadol shemevi mechsa shachars So again, he had this whole amount, he split it, but he was only makriv half of it. Umeis, then he died. Uminu kohen acher tachta, was another kohen gadol. So he can't take that one and from the other kohen gadol because it's not his. Furthermore, lo yovi chatzi yisaron mebeisai. All you need is another half for the afternoon. He can't just take half, even that's all he needs. The chatzi yisaron shel rishon. Ella maybe yisaron shalim. He has to now take another half, the chutzon, split it up, makrib mechsa, and be makrib half of it. Umechsa of it, the other half has to get lost. Nimsu shnei chatzoyim kriven, 2 halves are being makrib, shnei chatzoyim oivdin, and 2 are lost. Why? Because the first kohen gadol, was makrib half. The other half is going to be lost. This new kohen gadol, he has to take another shalem, split in half, and use one of those 2 halves. The other one gets lost. Okay, Tanur Banan. Iu nemar mincha machtzis. It would have said it that way. Maybe Shachrish, bring half in the morning from your house. Umakriv and be makriv. Chatzi yisar mebeso arvis. Umakriv, right? And be makriv it, and then take chatzi yisar mebeso arvis umakriv. Talmud loimer machasisa. That's the drasha. Half of it. You have to take from it. Baboker. Umachasisa ba'erev. Maxim Mishalim hu makriv. So you have to actually be makriv half of it, which means there must have been a whole amount first, and then you have to split it up, and you took half of this whole amount. Haketzad, maybe Yisar and Shalom has to be the whole amount. The chutzu split it. Umakriv mechsa b'bayim mechsa ben arbayim. Okay. Now, just like our Mishnah about the person dying, let's say nitma mechsa shel ben arbayim. Let's say it became tameh. Osha'avan, let's say it got lost. So Yachli Yavi Chatzi Yisar Mebeso Arvis V'Yakriv, maybe you only have to take another half because you only need another half. You already did the morning. No, Talmud Leimer Machasisa B'Bakam Machasisa B'Erev. Mechasa Mishalim Hu Mevi. You actually have to again bring another full amount. So again, Haketzad, maybe Yisar and Shalim Mebeso. You have to take another full amount from your house. V'Chutz is split it. Makriv Mechsa and be Makriv only half. Umechsa of it, half it gets lost. So just like our Mishnah, Nimsa Shnei Chatzoyin Kriv and Shnei Chatzoyin Oivdin. So let's say one was taka lost or became tameh, right? So then that half is not used, and then you have to take another full one, and then you take half in makriv, and the other half is not. Kohen gadol shehikri mechsa shachos umeis, which is our Mishnah. Uminu acher tachtav, another kohen gadol yachli yevi chatzi yisrain mebeso chatzi yisrainoi shel rishon. Maybe you could just take the other guys. Tomno machasi sa. It has to be yours, and you have to split it be'erev. Mechsa mishalim hu mevi hu makriv. Okay, it's on again. Maybe so in shalim you have to bring a whole amount. V'chutzu makriv v'mechsa aved nimsa shnei chatzayin oidin v'shnei chatzayin kriven. 2 are lost, 2 are kept. Okay, so tani chat. So it's really, that sounds very much like our Mishnah. Tani Tanakh Rab Nachman mechsa rishayin umechsa sheni. So let's say you have your first half and that second half. So 2 b'tzarasim. So we said in all these cases, what does it mean to get lost? So you can't just burn it and destroy it right away. You have to first let it sit and stick around all time and until it finally stays overnight, and then it is lina, and then because it becomes paisel lina, as Rashi says, Yasel Belina, so therefore, at that point, and only then, the Yasel Beis Yisrael are going to be burnt. The first Kohen Gadol who eventually died, so Ichseil Hakrava. I understand the problem is that it was mamish fit for Hakrava because he split it, he brought half in the morning, and this other half was going to be brought by him in the afternoon. The only reason why he didn't is because he died. Small detail, right? But the Kohen Gadol died. But this piece, this half, was going to be makriv, so it makes sense that you should wait until it gets a psul, and then you can burn it. El shneni lamle ibud surah. Why do we have to wait? Mikar ibud kasi. It should just be destroyed right away, which is going to be question TB 2. Kohen gadol shehikriv shachris minchas chavitin umeis. Maybe Yisar and Shalem v'chutzu makriv mechsa, the other Kohen Gadol, v'chatzi hasheni toin ibur tzura. The second half has to be possible at belina. So madua lu yisraf miad hami karlu chazil akrava. So it wasn't fit. So diarmo chamani So is this like Tanabe Rabba bar Avuahu? The Amr Afil Pigel Toyin Ibud Surah. He just holds that there's this din. Doesn't really explain why, but we're strict, as Rashi says, the psul chamarhu without pasul deraisa toyin surah. That there's just a din that even if something comes mamash, even a psul deraisa, we still require for it to be to have a psul of lina before we burn it. Just like that's just what we do. Rav Ashi gives a beautiful answer. And actually, I wrote this beautifully too. I'm going to share in a second. Rav Ashi Filu Temo Rabbanon Kivan de Beidna de Palgi Ba, the second Kohen Gadol, when he splits it into two, Iboy Hai Makriv, Iboy Hai Makriv. So Mixachazu. He did obviously choose one half, but at that moment, each one of them was Chazi Lakrava. And then he only just decided, because he can't do both, because it's the afternoon, you can only take half, so he chose this half. But the truth is, he could have chose the other half, and therefore, for that reason, it needs psulina. So listen how I wrote this. This is what I wrote. Okay, or kivan sheshnehem, I think chazi lo minchas chavitin afilu lo lokach es echad mehen mikol makam hasheni gam chazi lakrava. I put that in parentheses. V'sarach ibr tzura b'shas hachitzui. Okay, I'm not sure I had to add that, but beautiful answer. Itmar chaviti kohen gadol ketzad oisanaisa. What exactly? What is the process of what we do with this mincha? So zumachok. Rav Chia barav oimer Rav Yochanan oifer yakach mitagna. So we don't just bake it, we don't just fry it, we have to do both. The question is in which order. So he holds first you should bake it in the oven, and then only you fry into a pan. Rav Yochanan says the other way around. Mitagna v'yachach oifa. First you should fry in a pan, and then bake it. So Rav Chia barabba kavasadim didi mistabra. I think that my logic makes more sense, that it should be baked first. Why? Because the pasuk says, toifini tafina noah. So he says the drush is noah, that it should be beautiful. Now, how will the food look better? It was first baked, and then it was fried in the pan. But if it was first fried in the pan and then baked, it's not going to look good. The food just will not have an appetizing appearance. If it was first baked in the oven and then fried, then it will look good. Rav Yossi Omer Kavase Dimastabra, that you should first fry it lightly in a pan, Toifini Tiafenu No, which means that you should prepare it partially cooked, which means that you should first put it in a frying pan, which will make it partially cooked. Like on Pesach, it's supposed to be, the carbon Pesach is supposed to be na, doesn't mean raw, it's supposed to be like partially cooked, partially roasted. So kitanai. The truth is the machlos tanai. The pasuk says taifini tiafena, so na. So it has to be beautified, which as we're interpreting, that means baked and then fried. Rabbi Omer tiafenu na. Rabbi Yosi Omer tiafenu rabba. It should be a lot. Islay na v'islay na. He thinks it needs to be beautified and also has to be like partially cooked. So there's different interpretations of Rashi says. So Rashi says Islay na mishum hachi oife, that you should bake it, ve'achach tigun, then fry it, v'islay na, which is the way of making it look nice. Mishum hachi oife tchil, that's why you have to bake it first, right? And then, but maybe you have to bake it again. Okay, lishnachrina. There's different meanings of Rashi. Rabba gedoyla. It should be a lot. Umurkas v'daka. You should kind of like flatten it out. V'zehu tia. That's the form of like frying it. V'islay metagna tchila. So therefore, it's like frying it first. You should pat it, like make it very big, and doing it that way. Then you bake it. Vika tigun na v'na v'gdoylhi lashon achar is another interpretation of Rashi. Tafenu raka, that it should be like soft, like with different liquids and with a lot of oil. Rashi says shir kakena b'shemen, that you should be like saturated with a lot of oil. Okay, Anyway, so that's just another opinion of what the Chaviti Kohen Gadol, exactly how it's supposed to be done. All right. Fine. Tnan Hasam. Chaviti Kohen Gadol, Lishasan, when it's kneading, Verichtan, the shaping of it, Vafiyasan, as well as baking it, Bifnim. It's supposed to be Bifnim, as Rashi says, Ba'azara. All of these processes of making the Minchas Chaviti Kohen Gadol has to be done inside. So it should be Azara, the Tanur Shel Matechas Hoy Ba'azara. It was a metal oven. V'li Shivarich, Avafagav, the Kaidim, Matan Shemen, he was done before they put oil. When the Skadsha, so being in Bifnim, he still needs to be inside, as Rashi says, the Ksavar Chatzi Sarin Shabo Haya Chaylit Chaviti Kohen Gadol Nimshach. Okay. Anyway, so that's what it is. It has to be inside. But here's the other key piece that we're going to focus on for the last part of today's shir. The daichas is the Shabbos. You can do all these things on Shabbos. Now, of course, you're not allowed to typically bake on Shabbos. You're typically not allowed to knead on Shabbos. These are part of the Lamates Malachos. But on Shabbos, you're allowed to do it because we know in the Beis HaMikdash, we were makriv of carbon sibor, we were makriv of carbon tamid, right? We shechted it on Shabbos, right? So this could also be done. So Minah Hanimil. So Omer Rav Huna Teafini Teafenu Na. So it says you can bake the Minachas Chaviti Kohen Gadol. Navi Afila Me'esmoil. If you want to make it beautiful, if you actually only prepared it on Friday, it's not Shabbos. So let's say you have to do it the day before. Then in Shafa, it's going to get all like fluffy and not in a good way, but it's going to get all puffed up and not good. In Shafa, and basically, says Rashi, nefucha baruach. It's going to like be blown up with air. It's not going to be good. So therefore, in order for it to be beautified, it has to be done on Shabbos. So therefore, it must be. Therefore, it's Daicha Shabbos. So Maskav Rav Yosef, Ema. Why don't we say the Kavishle Biyerka? Why don't we just say? Says Rashi, Toinin Biyarakos. So you should like wrap it up with vegetables. Kadesh Shel Yishlik Baruach. So there's other ways of, maybe you have to just do it on Friday. It's not Daicha Shabbos. So do this to be able to cause it not to get ruined. So the Rabbi Shmuel Tana Seyaseh V'Yafil B'Shabbos Seyaseh V'Yafil B'Tuma. So this is a drasha Machvas B'Shemin Teaseh and Vayikra Vav. The drasha is even on Shabbos. So by Omer Amar Kra, the pasuk says Soyos Minchas Mincha Tamid. So it says Mincha Tamidim, which just like the Mincha, which we know the Tamid Shel Shach, the Tamid Shel Shach, the Tamid Shel Shach is Daicha Shabbos. Sorry, Minchas Tamidin. So therefore, just like a Tamid, it's Daicha Shabbos. So too is this. Okay, we'll stop here. Adkan.